Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to share my thoughts on the Netflix live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you're a fan of the original animated series, you might be wondering if this version is worth watching or not. Well, I've seen all 8 episodes, and I have some opinions. So, let's get into it. Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the most beloved animated shows of all time. It tells the story of Aang, a young boy who is the reincarnation of the Avatar, a being who can master all 4 elements: water, earth, fire, and air. Along with his friends Katara, Sokka, and later Toph, he travels across the world to learn the 4 elements and stop the Fire Nation from conquering the other nations. The show is full of adventure, humor, drama, and amazing characters. It also explores themes like war, genocide, oppression, spirituality, and identity. The show ran for 3 seasons, from 2005 to 2008, and won multiple awards and critical acclaim. It also spawned a sequel series, The Legend of Korra, which followed the next Avatar, a girl named Korra, as she faced new threats and challenges in a more modern world. Both shows have a loyal fan base and are considered to be some of the best examples of animation storytelling. But as you may know, adapting Avatar: The Last Airbender to live action has not been easy. In 2010, director M. Night Shyamalan released a movie version of the first season, which was widely criticized for its poor writing, acting, effects, and representation. The movie was a box office flop, and a planned trilogy was scrapped. Many fans and critics agreed that Avatar: The Last Airbender was simply not suited for live action, and that it should remain in animation. However, in 2018, Netflix announced that they were developing a live-action series based on the original show, with the involvement of the creators Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko. This gave some hope to the fans, who thought that maybe this time, the adaptation would be faithful and respectful to the source material. But in 2020, DiMartino and Konietzko left the project, citing creative differences with Netflix. They said that the streaming service was not supportive of their vision, and that they could not guarantee the quality of the show. This raised a lot of red flags, and many fans started to lose interest in the project. But despite the controversy, the show went on, with Albert Kim as the new showrunner. The cast was announced in 2021, featuring mostly unknown actors of diverse backgrounds. The production took place in New Zealand, and the show was set to premiere in early 2024. And now, after a long wait, we finally have the Netflix live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So how is it? Is it better than the movie? Is it faithful to the original? Is it worth watching? Well, let's find out. What is the good in Avatar: The Last Airbender? Before I get into the bad and the ugly, I want to start with some positive aspects of the show. Because, to be fair, there are some things that the show does well, or at least decently. For one thing, the show looks pretty good. The cinematography, the sets, the costumes, and the locations are all well done. The show captures the beauty and diversity of the world of Avatar, from the snowy landscapes of the Southern Water Tribe, to the lush forests of the Earth Kingdom, to the volcanic islands of the Fire Nation. The show also uses a lot of practical effects, such as real animals, props, and stunts, which give a sense of realism and immersion. Another thing that the show does well is the casting. The actors who play the main characters are all talented and likable, and they have good chemistry with each other. Gordon Cormier as Aang is adorable and energetic, and he brings a lot of charm and innocence to the role. Kai Wintio as Katara is strong and compassionate, and she portrays the maternal and caring side of the character. Ian Owsley as Sokka is funny and sarcastic, and he provides some comic relief and wit to the group. Dallas Liu as Zuko is intense and conflicted, and he shows the complexity and depth of the character. The supporting cast is also solid, with some familiar faces like Daniel D. Kim as Iroh, Michelle Yeoh as Kaya, and Ken Leung as Zhao. The show also tries to be respectful and inclusive of the different cultures and identities that are represented in the show. The show features a diverse cast of actors from different ethnicities and backgrounds, and it avoids the whitewashing and erasure that plagued the movie. The show also incorporates some elements from the original show that were not present in the movie, such as the use of Chinese characters, the bending styles based on different martial arts, and the spiritual aspects of the Avatar world. The show also adds some new elements, such as more representation of LGBTQ+ characters, people with disabilities, and indigenous cultures. What is the bad in Avatar: The Last Airbender? But as much as I want to praise the show for its good intentions and efforts, I have to be honest and say that the show has a lot of problems. And the biggest problem, as I mentioned earlier, is the timing. The show tries to cram the entire first season of the original show, which had 20 episodes, into 8 episodes. And that's just not enough time to do justice to the story, the characters, and the world. The show feels rushed, shallow, and incomplete. It skips over a lot of important scenes, events, and details that made the original show so rich and engaging. It also changes some things that didn't need to be changed, and adds some things that didn't need to be added. For example, the show skips over the episode, The Southern Air Temple, which is where Aang learns that his people have been wiped out by the Fire Nation, and where he enters the Avatar state for the first time. This is a crucial moment for Aang's character development, as it shows his grief, anger, and power. It also introduces the concept of the Avatar state, which is a key element of the show. But the Netflix series glosses over this, and instead has Aang learn about the genocide from a random monk in a flashback. The show also skips over the episode, The Storm, which is where we learn about the backstories of Aang and Zuko, and how they became who they are. This is another important episode, as it shows the parallels and contrasts between the two characters, and how they are both shaped by their pasts. But the Netflix series barely touches on this, and instead has Aang and Zuko tell their stories in a very brief and vague way. The show also changes some things that were better in the original show. For example, the show changes the way that Aang and Katara meet. In the original show, Katara and Sokka are fishing on a boat when they see a giant iceberg emerge from the water. They investigate and find Aang and his flying bison Appa frozen inside. Katara breaks the ice with her waterbending, and Aang wakes up. This is a simple and effective way to introduce the main characters and to show their personalities and abilities. But in the Netflix series, Katara and Sokka are hunting on land when they see a glowing light in the distance. They follow it and find Aang and Appa buried under the snow. Katara digs them out with her hands, and Aang wakes up. This is a more complicated and less impactful way to introduce the main characters, and it also raises some questions like how did Aang and Appa end up under the snow, and why did they glow? The show also adds some things that were not in the original show, and that don't really add anything to the story. For example, the show adds a subplot where Katara and Sokka's father Hakoda is still alive and leading a resistance group against the Fire Nation. In the original show, Hakoda had left the Southern Water Tribe to join the war, and Katara and Sokka had not seen him for years. This added to their motivation to help Aang and to their emotional journey. But in the Netflix series, Hakoda is still around, and he communicates with Katara and Sokka through letters and messages. This diminishes their motivation and their emotional journey, and it also makes Hakoda seem like a less heroic and more passive character. What is the shocking in Avatar: The Last Airbender? And then, there are some things that the show does that are just plain ugly. And by ugly, I mean the special effects, especially the bending effects. The bending effects are one of the most iconic and impressive aspects of the original show. They are fluid, dynamic, and expressive. They show the different styles and personalities of the benders, and they create some amazing action scenes. But the Netflix series fails to capture the magic and the beauty of the bending. The bending effects are stiff, slow, and dull. They look like cheap CGI, and they don't match the movements and the expressions of the actors. They also don't make sense in terms of the physics and the logic of the world. For example, in the original show, waterbenders can bend water from any source, such as rivers, lakes, oceans, or even the moisture in the air. But in the Netflix series, waterbenders can only bend water from a specific source, such as a flask, a bucket, or a pouch. This makes the waterbending look very limited and impractical. And it also contradicts the original show, where waterbenders could bend water from any source. Another example is the firebending. In the original show, firebenders can create fire from their own chi, or life energy, and they can control the size, shape, and color of the fire. But in the Netflix series, firebenders can only manipulate fire from an external source, such as a torch, a candle, or a firework. This makes the firebending look very weak and dependent. And it also contradicts the original show, where firebenders could create fire from their own chi. The bending effects are not the only ugly thing in the show. The show also has some ugly choices in terms of the writing, the direction, and the tone. The show tries to be more mature and realistic than the original show, but it ends up being more dark and depressing. The show adds some unnecessary violence, gore, and death, which don't fit the spirit of the show. For example, the show has a scene where Ong kills a Fire Nation soldier by crushing him with a boulder. This is completely out of character for Ong, who is a pacifist and a vegetarian, and who would never kill anyone, even his enemies. The show also has a scene where Zuko burns a village and kills a child, which is also out of character for Zuko, who is not a ruthless murderer, but a conflicted and redeemable character. The show also has some unnecessary romance, drama, and angst, which don't add anything to the story. For example, the show has a subplot where Katara and Jet, a rebel leader, have a romantic relationship, which causes some tension and jealousy between Katara and Ong. This is not only a deviation from the original show, where Katara and Jet never had a romantic relationship, but also a distraction from the main plot and the main characters. The Netflix live-action adaptation of Avatar, The Last Airbender, is a disappointment. It fails to capture the essence and the magic of the original show, and it makes a lot of mistakes and changes that ruin the story, the characters, and the world. It is not faithful, respectful, or enjoyable. It is not better than the movie, and it is not worth watching. If you are a fan of the original show, or if you are curious about the world of Avatar, I suggest you stick to the animation and avoid this live-action version. Trust me, you'll be happier that way. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, where I review and analyze the latest shows and movies. Today, I'm going to talk about the Netflix adaptation of Avatar, The Last Airbender, one of the most beloved animated series of all time. I'm going to share my thoughts on the first season, which covers the events of Book 1, Water. I'll also compare it to the original show and point out some of the changes and choices that the creators made. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Avatar. The Last Airbender is a fantasy adventure series that follows the journey of Aang, a 12-year-old boy who is the reincarnation of the Avatar, a being who can master all four elements: air, water, earth, and fire. Aang has been frozen in an iceberg for 100 years, during which the Fire Nation has waged a war against the other nations and wiped out the air nomads. Aang is the last surviving airbender, and he must learn the other three elements and stop the Fire Lord before he conquers the world. Along the way, he meets friends and foes, and discovers the secrets of his past and his destiny. The Netflix adaptation is a live-action remake of the animated series, with some changes and updates to the story, characters, and visuals. The first season consists of 10 episodes, each about an hour long, and covers the same arc as the original show's first season. The Netflix show aims to be faithful to the spirit and themes of the original, while also adding some new twists and perspectives. Avatar: The Last Airbender. The story. The story of the Netflix show follows the same basic plot as the animated series, with some minor and major deviations. The show begins with Aang being discovered by Katara and Sokka, two siblings from the Southern Water Tribe, who join him on his quest to learn waterbending at the North Pole. Along the way, they encounter various challenges and allies, such as the Kyoshi warriors, the pirates, the fortune teller, the Blue Spirit, the Northern Air Temple, and the Siege of the North. However, the Netflix show also makes some changes to the story, some of which are more noticeable and impactful than others. For example, the show skips some episodes from the original, such as the King of Omashu, the Great Divide, and the Waterbending Scroll, and combines some elements from different episodes, such as Jet, the Storm, and the Deserter. The show also adds some new scenes and subplots, such as Ong's visions of his past lives, Katara's encounter with the Fire Nation prison, and Zuko's confrontation with Zhao. Some of these changes are understandable, given the different format and medium of the Netflix show. The show has to condense and streamline the story to fit into 10 episodes, and also has to balance the tone and pace of a live-action drama. Some of the changes are also creative and clever, such as showing Ong's backstory through his connection to the spirit world, or giving Katara more agency and conflict in her arc. However, some of the changes also feel unnecessary or detrimental, such as removing some of the humor and character moments from the original, or altering some of the themes and messages of the story. Avatar: The Last Airbender. The characters. The characters are arguably the most important and beloved aspect of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and the Netflix show does a decent job of capturing their personalities and relationships. The show also does a commendable job of casting diverse and talented actors who fit the roles and bring them to life. The main protagonist, Ong, is played by Cormier, who does a great job of portraying the cheerful and playful nature of the character, as well as the burden and guilt that he carries as the Avatar. Ong is still the same optimistic and adventurous kid that we know and love, but he also has some darker and deeper moments that show his inner conflict and growth. The main antagonist, Zuko, is played by Dallas Liu, who also delivers a solid performance as the brooding and tormented prince of the Fire Nation. Zuko is still the same stubborn and determined foe that we love to hate, but he also has some softer and sympathetic moments that show his inner struggle and redemption. Liu also has a good chemistry with Paul Sun Hyung Lee, who plays his wise and kind Uncle Iroh, who is one of the best characters in the show. The main supporting characters, Katara and Sokka, are played by Kai Wentio and Ian Owsley, who also do a good job of portraying the siblings from the Water Tribe. Katara is still the same compassionate and courageous girl that we admire and relate to, but she also has some more assertive and rebellious moments that show her character development and potential. Sokka is still the same sarcastic and resourceful guy that we enjoy and laugh with, but he also has some more serious and mature moments that show his leadership and skills. Avatar: The Last Airbender. The visuals. The visuals are another important and impressive aspect of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and the Netflix show tries to recreate and enhance them with live action and CGI. The show does a good job of creating the world of Avatar, with its diverse and rich cultures, landscapes, and creatures. The show also does a good job of depicting the bending, the martial art that allows the characters to manipulate the elements. The show uses a combination of practical and digital effects to create the bending, and the result is mostly convincing and spectacular. However, the visuals are also one of the most challenging and controversial aspects of the Netflix show, as they have to live up to the high standards and expectations of the fans. The show sometimes struggles to match the quality and consistency of the animated series, especially when it comes to the spirit world, the animals, and the Avatar state. The show also sometimes suffers from the limitations and drawbacks of live action and CGI, such as the realism, the budget, and the uncanny valley. The show also sometimes makes some questionable and disappointing choices, such as the design and appearance of some of the characters, such as Appa, Momo, and the Fire Lord. The Netflix show is similar to the original series, with some minor and major differences. The show ends with the epic and emotional finale of the Siege of the North, where Ong and his friends have to defend the Northern Water Tribe from the Fire Nation's invasion. The show follows the same beats and outcomes as the animated series, such as Ong entering the Avatar state, Zuko kidnapping Ong, Katara fighting Zuko, Iroh helping Ong, Zhao killing the moon spirit, Yu sacrificing herself, and Ong merging with the ocean spirit. However, the show also makes some changes to the conclusion, some of which are more satisfying and surprising than others. For example, the show adds some new scenes and twists, such as Ong meeting Roku in the spirit world, Zuko having a vision of his mother, Katara using bloodbending, Iroh revealing his firebending, Zhao being taken by the fog of lost souls, and Ong sparing the Fire Navy. The show also sets up some hints and teasers for the next season, such as Ong seeing a vision of Toph, Zuko receiving a letter from his sister, and the Fire Lord summoning his daughter. Avatar: The Last Airbender. The cast. One of the most controversial aspects of the Netflix adaptation is the casting. The original show featured a diverse cast of characters, inspired by various Asian and indigenous cultures. However, the Netflix show has been accused of whitewashing some of the characters, such as Katara and Sokka, who are played by white actors. Many fans were disappointed by this decision, as it erases the representation and authenticity of the original show. On the other hand, some of the cast members have received praise for their performances, such as Daniel D. Kim as Fire Lord Ozai, the main antagonist of the series, and Dallas Liu as Zuko, the banished prince of the Fire Nation who pursues the Avatar. Kim brings a menacing and charismatic presence to the role of Ozai, while Liu portrays Zuko's inner turmoil and redemption arc with nuance and emotion. However, the standout of the cast is Ian Owsley, who plays Sokka, Katara's brother, and the comic relief of the group. Owsley does a remarkable job of capturing Sokka's personality and humor, while also adding some depth and maturity to the character, Sokka's character. The major challenge for Owsley as Sokka is translating animation humor into live action. Exaggerated jokes from the original show can't be transferred over without adjustments, and sometimes the Netflix adaptation gets it very wrong. But Owsley plays Sokka's comedic scenes with a bit of dry humor and sarcasm that take the edge off. Whatever changes were made to the character feel insignificant in the grand scheme of the story. While the original series took a while to dig into Sokka's more serious backstory, the Netflix show explores it early and to the character's benefit, giving him a role beyond simply being comic relief. Sokka is the only non-bender in the group, which makes him feel insecure and inferior at times. He compensates for this by being the strategist and planner of the team, using his intelligence and creativity to come up with solutions. He also develops his skills as a warrior, learning from various mentors and cultures along the way. He forms a romantic relationship with Yu, the princess of the Northern Water Tribe, who sacrifices herself to save the Moon Spirit. He later falls in love with Suki, the leader of the Kyoshi Warriors, a group of female fighters who protect their island. Sokka's character arc is about finding his place and purpose in the world, as well as overcoming his prejudices and biases. He starts out as a sexist and xenophobic teenager, who mocks Katara for wanting to learn waterbending and distrusts anyone who is not from his tribe. However, as he travels with Ong and meets different people, he learns to respect and appreciate other cultures and perspectives. He also becomes more supportive and protective of his sister, as well as a loyal and reliable friend to Ong and Toph. Bending effects. What the animated show always did well was offering a creative look at bending. Yes, there are only 4 elements, but how each bender utilizes the elements is different. Some firebenders can bend lightning, some can bend blood, and some can even bend blind, using only the vibrations of the earth beneath their feet. Bending is unique for every character, and we get a glimpse of that here in the Netflix show. We see it with Katara as she learns more waterbending and takes inspiration from earthbenders, and we see it with Zuko as he utilizes every body part to bend fire to his will. However, these effects don't always work. Specifically, water and airbending don't feel as natural on screen. In fights between waterbenders, the scenes don't mesh well together, with the water effects looking unrealistic. By trying to mimic the style seen in the animated show, the seams are showing between the actors and the special effects. Airbending, done primarily by Ong, lacks the magnitude it should have. Some of this could be attributed to the fact that Ong has not had to use a massive amount of airbending. But similar to water, it is difficult to make these types of bending look realistic. Earth and firebending fare better, as they are more grounded and tangible. The earthbending scenes are impressive, especially when Toph joins the team and shows off her metal bending abilities. The firebending scenes are also exciting, especially when we see the Agni Kai duels between Zuko and his sister Azula, or Zuko and his father Ozai. The fire effects are bright and vivid, creating a contrast with the dark and gloomy atmosphere of the Fire Nation. Let's start with the characters, because they are the heart and soul of the show. The main trio of Aang, Katara, and Sokka are played by Noah Ringer, Kiernan Shipka, and Finn Wolfhard, respectively. I think they did a decent job of portraying their characters, especially considering the pressure of living up to the expectations of the fans. They have good chemistry and capture the essence of their personalities. Ringer brings out Aang's playful and optimistic side, but also his guilt and responsibility as the Avatar. Shipka shows Katara's compassion and determination, but also her insecurities and flaws. Wolfhard delivers Sokka's sarcasm and humor, but also his bravery and leadership. However, I also think that the characters could have been developed more, especially in terms of their relationships and motivations. The show doesn't give enough time for the characters to bond and grow, and sometimes their actions feel rushed or forced. For example, Aang and Katara's romance feels too sudden and lacks the subtlety and nuance of the original. Sokka and Yu's love story feels too shallow and cliched. Zuko and Iroh's dynamic feels too strained and distant. The show also doesn't explore the characters' backgrounds and histories as much as the original, which makes them less relatable and sympathetic. For example, we don't get to see Katara and Sokka's mother's death, Zuko's banishment and scar, or Aang's past lives. Avatar: The Last Airbender. The world building. Another aspect of the show that could have been improved is the world building. The show does a good job of recreating the look and feel of the different nations and cultures, and the sets and costumes are impressive and faithful to the original. The show also introduces some new elements, such as the spirit world and the lion turtles, which add more depth and mystery to the world. However, the show also misses some opportunities to expand and enrich the world, and sometimes contradicts or simplifies the original. For example, the show doesn't explain the origins and rules of bending, or how it relates to the spirituality and philosophy of the world. The show also changes some aspects of bending, such as making it require more physical movements, or making it depend on the presence of the element. The show also glosses over some of the political and social issues of the world, such as the oppression and genocide of the air nomads, the resistance and corruption of the Earth Kingdom, or the propaganda and brainwashing of the Fire Nation. Avatar: The Last Airbender. The bending. One of the most iconic and exciting features of the show is the bending, the ability to manipulate the four elements. The show uses a combination of CGI and martial arts to bring the bending to life, and the results are mixed. On one hand, the bending looks realistic and impressive, and the show does a good job of showcasing the different styles and techniques of each element. The show also adds some new twists to the bending, such as the metal bending of the Dai Lai, or the lightning bending of Azula. On the other hand, the bending also looks slow and weak, and the show doesn't capture the fluidity and creativity of the original. The show also reduces the role and impact of the bending, and sometimes makes it seem irrelevant or ineffective. For example, the show doesn't show how bending affects the culture and lifestyle of the people, or how it gives them an advantage or disadvantage in combat. The show also makes some questionable choices with the bending, such as making the fire benders need a source of fire, or making the moon spirit affect all the elements, not just water. Avatar: The Last Airbender. The season length. Another factor that affects the quality of the show is the season length. The original show had 20 episodes per season, each lasting about 22 minutes. The Netflix show has 10 episodes per season, each lasting about 45 minutes. This means that the Netflix show has less time to tell the same story, and this leads to some problems. The show has to cut or condense some of the episodes and scenes from the original, and this makes the story feel rushed and incomplete. The show also has to cram a lot of information and events into each episode, and this makes the story feel crowded and confusing. The show also loses some of the charm and fun of the original, as it focuses more on the drama and action, and less on the comedy and adventure. The show also misses some of the opportunities to explore and develop the characters and the world, as it skips some of the filler and side episodes that added more depth and variety to the original. The first season of Netflix's Avatar, The Last Airbender, was always going to struggle to be perfect, and the reality is that there is just too much to take on. The characters, the world building, the bending, the shortened season, there are a lot of things to juggle, and the result is a show that has some serious flaws. However, that doesn't mean that these blemishes are permanently detrimental to the franchise, as the backbone of the series is still strong. There's clearly a firm understanding of the world through the narrative, though some supporting character interpretations are seriously eyebrow-raising, and most importantly, the overall cast is solid. Alongside the leading characters, supporting actors like Daniel D. Kim's Fire Lord Ozai or Elizabeth Yu's Princess Azula show great promise for potential future seasons. Yu particularly offers a less sharpened edge to Azula, considered one of the most menacing characters of the franchise, and has the room to lean into a more three-dimensional portrayal. What weakens the show can be improved on. Longer seasons could help in the future, but what might help Avatar The Last Airbender more is if the producers are not so precious with the source material. The desire to call back to scenes like the Secret Tunnel or the Cabbage Merchant may garner chuckles from animated show devotees, but aren't integral to the story. Embracing the adaptation as just that, an adaptation, will go far in improving the series as a whole. Being unafraid to cut extraneous plot lines or even expand on familiar characters in new ways can help the series stand on its own. Overall, Season 1 of Avatar The Last Airbender is a firm step in the right direction, with a solid foundation and also room to grow. Overall, the Netflix adaptation of Avatar The Last Airbender is a mixed bag. It has some good moments and some bad moments, some faithful adaptations and some unnecessary changes. It is not as good as the original show, but it is not as bad as the 2010 movie by M. Night Shyamalan. It is somewhere in between, a decent attempt at bringing a beloved story to a new medium and a new audience. If you are a fan of the original show, you might enjoy some aspects of the Netflix show, but you might also be disappointed by others. If you are new to the Avatar universe, you might find the Netflix show entertaining, but you might also miss out on some of the nuances and details of the original show. Either way, I recommend you to watch the Netflix show with an open mind, and then watch the original show to see the difference. So, that's my review and analysis of the Netflix adaptation of Avatar The Last Airbender, Season 1. Overall, I think the show is a decent and enjoyable remake, but it also has some flaws and shortcomings. The show has some good and bad changes to the story, characters, and visuals, and it also has some potential and room for improvement. The show is not as good as the original, but it's also not as bad as some people say. The show is worth watching, especially if you're a fan of the animated series, but it's also worth being critical and constructive. The Netflix live-action adaptation of Avatar The Last Airbender is a disappointment. It fails to capture the essence and the magic of the original show, and it makes a lot of mistakes and changes that ruin the story, the characters, and the world. It is not faithful, respectful, or enjoyable. It is not better than the movie, and it is not worth watching. If you are a fan of the original show, or if you are curious about the world of Avatar, I suggest you stick to the animation and avoid this live-action version. Trust me, you'll be happier that way. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment below. What did you think of the Netflix adaptation of Avatar The Last Airbender? Who was your favorite character? What was your favorite scene? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified when I upload new videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.